you're about to go live on YouTube, just give me a minute.
Right.
I'll let you know. All right, we're all set.
Okay. Thank you for everyone for attending. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's the Monday, November 16th, 2020, Town of Scarborough Planning Board meeting. First order of business is to release, and I believe I heard Angela can help us out this evening. Everyone rise. Pledges to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You got a fancy flag, Angela. That's a nice one. All right, next order of business is our roll call. I'll call the roll. Rachel Hendrickson.
Here.
Roger Beely.
Here.
Jennifer Ladd. Rick Meinking.
Here.
Nick McGee. Here. Robin Saunders, not present, and Richard Dupere present. So Rick Meinking, as a matter of business, you will be a voting member this evening. All right. Next item is the approval of the minutes for the October 26th and November 2nd meetings.
So moved.
We should have received those. Everyone had a chance to review it. I'll accept a motion to accept the October 26th and November 2nd meeting minutes.
So moved.
And a motion, is there a second? All right, any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Rachel Hendrickson.
Aye.
Roger Beely.
Yes.
Jennifer Ladd. Rick Meinking.
Yes.
Nick McGee. Yes. Shows unanimous. Thank you. First item on tonight's agenda is consent item. Dana Fortier requests a subdivision amendment review for the Pintail Point subdivision, Assessor's Map R93, Lot 36. Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you may recall, this project's in the RF zoning district, south of the Pleasant Hill neighborhood. The applicant's proposing to expand the approved building envelope on Lot 1 within the subdivision. The board actually moved this to a consent item at the last meeting in early November. Since the last meeting, the applicant did provide correspondence from DEP staff and supplemental materials that indicate that the proposal to expand the existing building envelope does meet the existing DEP permits in their permit. So at this point, staff has no further comments, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Jamel. Kylie, this is a consent item, so unless there is anything you really wanted to add into this, I'll turn it over to quick board questions. All right. For the board, anything to add? Rachel.
Yeah, I was just wondering if the applicant intends to utilize the whole site at some point. In other words, while moving the shed into there, the DEP permit appears to say there doesn't have to be any limit of disturbance. It would be helpful for the applicant and for the town to know if the intent was that the whole lot would have no limit of disturbance on it, or if this is only for the purposes of surrounding the shed.
No, if I might, Dana, the intention is to adjust the lot line to meet current standards, not just for the shed at this point, but given the investment he's made in it, to make it effective over the entire lot.
My suggestion is, if that's agreeable, that's something that perhaps might need to go into the draft motion. If the board.
Sorry, Rachel, I didn't quite hear your the latter part of your sentence there.
I said if the board is amenable, that would be something that perhaps should go into the draft motion, so that there's no question in the future if the applicant comes back and wants to put something else on the property and we don't go through this again. So the applicant is that.
certainly appreciate that. Yeah.
Any other, Roger?
Yeah, along the same lines, as I read this from Mr. Green, they can't find any provisions regarding these building envelopes in this whole development. Did I read that correct, Jamal?
The applicant can jump in, but from what I understand, Bob Green noted that the only place in the development where that can't be disturbed is the 100-foot stream buffer, which this lot does not encroach on. So other lots could.
Okay, the reason I raise this is I imagine that many of the other homeowners may think they're under this building envelope requirement, and maybe they're not, based on the current records. And assuming that's correct, is there anything that the planning department can do to correct the records for the rest of those homeowners on that property, so some future homeowner comes forward, they won't have to go through the same thing?
It's up to the homeowner oh, go ahead, Angela.
Yeah, I don't know if I can jump in.
Yeah.
I think there are two pieces, Roger. There's the local planning board approval, and there's also the DEP approval. And so you guys have some control or governing over the local. And so that's where when you guys were in favor of moving forward with this, it was really just checking in with DEP. I think it's still a separate approval. So we still have a subdivision approval that says these are the envelopes, and there might be other factors with other lots. And so I don't know is that we could do a blanketed, we're changing the rules for this original subdivision that was recorded and approved by a previous planning board. And so again, we kind of have to look at each piece. And while it's helpful to have clarification from DEP, that really their concern for this lot, and they were looking at this lot, is that 100-foot, and this is outside that 100-foot setback from the stream. I don't know as it's in the best interest to kind of have a blanketed without looking deeper into the rest of the subdivision. And from a local standpoint, DEP might have their own concerns about water quality and things like that. Locally, we might want to look at flooding and other issues. So I guess that's, in order to keep this simple, I think it would be in the best interest to kind of move this through and look at each lot that comes forward.
I understand that. I was just wondering, like say 5 years from now, a new owner moves in there into that development, and they decide they want to put a pool in or something like that, and all of a sudden they come before the planning department. Will there be some point of reference to this particular case? So that new homeowner, assuming they meet all the other requirements that the town has, they won't have to go through DEP just to find out there's no document there.
Well, I will say whatever happens tonight with the planning board approval will go in this lot of record. So the code office would pull this up if, say, they in the future want to come forward, like you said in your instance with a pool, that this would cover this lot because it would go into that. I don't know is 10 years from now, if 3 lots down, that this would play into it. Not necessarily. I think at that point it would be depending on staff's recollection to be able to pull that, or saying it's not a big deal, but we would still need something from DEP, I think, but maybe not through, we at least have some experience with it. And I think it's helpful with other subdivisions as well that come forward like this, that we can say we've gone through this process, and it might be an easier process, but it's still a process.
Yeah, it would still be a subdivision amendment because the conditions would be changing on the approved plans, Roger. So
No
that's the
silver
problem.
bullet here. So we'll just solve one problem tonight.
We don't want to work on the world.
We've elected the best for that, right? So any other questions or comments on this consent item? No? Okay. Jamel, I think we're ready.
I think Angela's going to pull it up if she is able to.
That work?
Thank you, Angela. I was going to move my little screen out of the way. There we go. All right. I move to approve the project titled Subdivision Amendment Plan, Lot 1 by Dana Fortier as depicted on the plan set prepared by Sebago Technics dated 10/2/20 with the following findings. And proposed amended subdivision plan includes the expansion of the approved building envelope on Lot 1 with the existing Pintail Point subdivision in accordance with the zoning ordinance. Planning board has determined that the entirety of the lot is located outside of the required 100 foot no disturb stream buffer per the existing main DEP permitting requirements. Subdivision is located within the RF zoning district and is further identified on the town of Scarborough tax maps as R93 lot 36. The motion. I have a second discussion on that. Okay. Do a roll call. Rachel Hendrickson,
Yes.
Roger Beely,
Yes.
Rick Meinking,
Yes.
Jennifer Ladd,
Yes.
Nick McGee. Yes. So that's unanimous. Thank you. Congratulations. Good luck.
Thank you,
Thank you
Mr.
all for
Chair.
your
Thank you,
help.
Planning Board.
Thank you very much.
Next item on tonight's agenda is Euphoria LLC, request a site plan review for lot 46 within the Innovation District, subdivision at the Downs, assessors map U53, lot 46. Jamel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you recall, the applicant's proposing to construct a 44,160 square foot building that will consist of product preparation, light assembly, refurbishment areas, storage, and future office space. The project's located on lot 46 within the Innovation District subdivision. It's at the end of Immersion Drive. So the board moved this to a consent item as well during the last meeting with the condition that the applicant address any remaining review comments from staff and the town's peer reviewers. So staff has reviewed these materials and we're comfortable with the remaining elements being considered conditions of approval if the board's comfortable. So staff did draft a motion for your consideration this evening. Turn it back to you.
Thanks, Jamel. And for the applicant, again, we have this as a consent item. So unless there's anything that you believe that is being required of you through staff that you're not happy with, I prefer to just turn this over to the board, see if there's any outstanding in their minds. Okay, great. Board members, you have anything on this that you wanted to add or discuss? Okay. Angela, if you could so assist us with a motion, please. All right. I move to approve the site plan project titled Lot 46, 4755 Innovation District as depicted on the plan set prepared by St. Clair Associates dated 11/2/20 with the following findings, waivers, and conditions. Findings, the applicant is proposing to construct a 44,160 square building that will consist of uses such as product preparation, light assembly, refurbishment areas, storage, and future office space. Proposal also includes landscaping provisions, pedestrian amenities, and parking. Project is located at the end of Immersion Drive, a private lot 54 of the Innovation District subdivision, and is within the Crossroads Plan Development CPD zoning district. Planning board has reviewed the application and supporting documentation, finds that the proposed design of the site plan adequately addresses the site plan review, zoning ordinance, Mission District regulating plan requirements for site utilization, layout, access, internal vehicular movement, parking, pedestrian ways, landscaping, stormwater management, lighting, architecture, signage, utilities, and storage. Waivers: 1, permit the proposed driveway width for the northerly driveway and 83 feet for the southerly driveway. 2, permit the proposed driveway separation of 3 feet. 3, permit the proposed parking aisle width of 24 feet. Conditions. Planning board has determined the building can be occupied or use carried on with fewer parking spaces than required and has reduced the requirements for off-street parking in accordance with section 11.c in the zoning ordinance prior to any change of use and or tenant on the site. Provide written notice to the planning department for staff to determine whether the changes should be reviewed by the planning board. 2, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall revise the plan set to include A, an updated plan title to reflect that the project is located only on Lot 46. B, a plan note referring to the most recently recorded subdivision plan for the Innovation District subdivision. C, an updated construction plan for Immersion Drive. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 3, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall A, pay the traffic impact fees. B, provide approval from the Portland Water District. C, address the remaining review comments in the civil peer review memo from Woodard and Curran dated 11/12/20. D, address the remaining review comments in the review memo from Traffic Solutions dated 11/11/20. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 4, prior to the issuance of a sign permit, the applicant shall provide a final signage plan. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 5, prior to the start of construction, a construction meeting is required. Meeting shall include appropriate town staff, the developer, and their site contractor, and is to be coordinated through the planning department. 6, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, copy of the modified MDOT traffic movement permit shall be submitted to the planning department. That is the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion on this? All right, seeing none, I'll call roll. Rachel Hendrickson,
Yes.
Roger Beely,
Yes.
Rick Meinking,
Yes.
Jennifer Ladd,
Yes.
Nick McGee. Yes, sure, this is unanimous. Congratulations and good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate all your help.
Next item on tonight's agenda is item number 7. Anderson Chamberlain Construction, Inc. requests a subdivision amendment review for the Dunstan Crossing subdivision, Assessors Map U30, lots 16 and 17. Mel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the applicant here is proposing to make several modifications to the existing Dunstan Crossing subdivision, including the revision of lot configuration within Lot 6, modifications to the potential duplex sites within phases 5 and 6, the extension of Guggens Drive to the southwest side of Stewart Drive, and some property line adjustments to some of the single-family lots on Immersion Drive and Stewart Drive. So in our staff review comments, staff has continued to note that the proposed modifications and associated details remain unclear based on the materials provided to date. Staff has continued to recommend that the applicant provide additional plans and future submissions that depict the existing conditions on the site, along with the proposed modifications to help provide some clarity during the review process. The revised materials should also clearly identify if any new units or lots are proposed as well. And staff has continued to recommend that these materials be provided as part of a resubmission package prior to the board taking final action. There are also some questions related to the proposed ownership of the future right-of-way proposed along Paulson Drive. So the applicant should provide some clarity on the intended ownership of this as well with future submissions. Staff did receive a letter from the public earlier today. Did send this along to the applicant and the board for your consideration. And then finally, staff and the town's peer reviewers did provide a host of remaining comments for consideration as well. Turn it back to you.
Thanks, Jamel. And for the applicant, Rick or Elliot?
Thank you. Thank you for your time this evening. As Jamel said, we are here for approval of the 7th amended subdivision. I'm going to share my screen with you. So the subdivision was originally approved for 264 residential units in the red, yellow, green, blue, light blue, and purple shaded areas of this plan. The applicant is not seeking to change the number of units, residential units proposed, simply the configuration of the proposed single family lots and some of the duplex configuration within phases 4 and 5. The infrastructure of most of the previous phases 1, 2, 3, and 4 is constructed, and the majority of the lots and multifamily units and duplexes are constructed. Elliot, if you'd like to add to that on the extent. But what we're seeking for approval tonight is some changes to phases 4, which is this darker blue region. I'm sorry, phases 5, which is the darker blue, and the purple phase, which is phase 6. Um, Jamel did suggest that we provide some graphics that explain what the changes are. So I've done that with these side-by-side comparisons. On your left is the amendment that was the last amendment that was or last time the sheet was changed. This is an overall view of the phase 4 and 5 area. If I go back to that plan, so this plan is showing this area here. And on, like I said, on the left is the third amended. That's the last time this section was amended. And what we're proposing is the 7th amended. And what I've done is highlighted the changes that we're proposing. So in the green area, this was originally the condominium land, Lot O and Lot N. There was, you know, a slightly configuration of these lot lines near the southern abutter. So we've changed that to allow for some duplex configuration changes that we're proposing. Another change was this lot was, the applicant felt that this lot was going to be difficult. So we're proposing a minor lot line change between this 6-unit multifamily building and this single family lot. And one other change on this plan is these 3 lots. We've adjusted these 2 lot lines in minor ways to make these 3 lots better suited for development. And just to blow up onto that same area of the subdivision, this is rotated, and this sheet was last amended for the 6th amended, and that was to, I believe, to place some of these, or the final configuration of some of these duplex units in that phase. But again, we're showing what we're proposing to do is, like I said, a reconfiguration of these duplexes. So we're adding actually, we're adding 3 or 4 new duplexes, but that replaces these multi-unit buildings that were originally proposed. Again, showing the lot line change between this multi-unit and this single family lot, and these 3 lot, or the 2 lot lines between these 3 lots with minor adjustment. Back to phase 6. So this is, again, just for reference, this is this area here. And again, it's rotated. So this area was last, or this sheet was last amended in the 6th amended, and we're proposing these changes in the 7th amended. There were originally, I believe, 27 single family lots, including the single family lots in the interior. That's what we're proposing to do is change that to 15 single family lots around the exterior and add 6 duplexes in the interior of that Paulson Drive. Again, that's no net change in the number of units, simply a reconfiguration of those units. And the other change that we're requesting is the addition of this proposed future right-of-way to connect with some abutting land, but that abutting land, and it's for a single family lot, but that single family lot would not be incorporated into the subdivision per se. In addition to the subdivision plans, we've submitted plans and profiles primarily to depict what the changes to the infrastructure, the utility infrastructure are going to be. Angela may remember that we did similar plans for the 6th amended to amend what we did in phase 4. And that was primarily to bring the utilities up to standards to meet the Scarborough Sanitary District standards, as well as Portland Water District standards. But simply providing those plans for staff review to help us meet the obligations with the town. So if the planning board is open, we would request a decision on the subdivision amendment, and with a condition perhaps that we coordinate with staff regarding the proposed utility changes. If Elliot, unless you want to add something, I'd turn it back to the board for any discussion or questions.
No, I think that pretty much covered everything, Rick. So I'll let the questions start.
Thank you very much. We do have an opportunity for public comment on this item. If you are here from the public and would like to speak, please use the raise my hand feature on the bottom right-hand corner of your app. Jeremy Dill, welcome, and you could just spend no more than 4 minutes. We'd love to hear what you have to say.
Certainly. I was actually the one that submitted by email public comment, so I don't know if that is something that you guys already received and saw. My question was, I'm a budding property owner, recent abutting property owner of 12 Susan Ave. We live at 40 Martin Ave and had bought the 12 Susan Ave parcel kind of as a buffer behind our current house. And if you'll note at the Paulson Drive piece of the amendment to the subdivision, that proposed right of way right there, there's an existing right of way that is basically a Susan Avenue extension. And I had just noted on the plans that this new right of way, offsets the existing right of way for Susan Avenue by, some 20 or 30 feet. So I guess my curiosity was just, from a planning perspective, why those might not align to, tie the neighborhoods and any future development together.
All right. Thank you, Jeremy, for your comments. And we as the board will, thank you for presenting it through the chair. We'll have staff clarify, or members of the board ask the developers to, or the applicants to clarify for us. Any other public comments here today? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close public comments. Mr. Torres.
Oh yeah, thank you. I just wanted to jump in because there seems to be some confusion about the right-of-way that's depicted on the town's assessing maps. We've been looking at this for quite a long time, and we can't find any evidence that there is a right-of-way on that abutting parcel of land. For some reason, it shows up in our assessing maps, but we haven't been provided evidence that it's an actual right-of-way on planet Earth. So we typically would like to see right-of-ways aligned, but given that there's no evidence of that being an actual right-of-way, I just wanted to note that.
So just so I'm clear, you believe the missing right-of-way is on a parcel that Mr. Dill may own?
I don't know if he owns it per se, but if you look on the town's tax maps, it shows Susan Ave continuing all the way through these parcels that he was speaking about, all the way to Elliott's or Dunstan Crossing, and there's no record on file showing that that's an actual approved right-of-way. So I just wanted to note that.
All right. Thanks, Jamel. All right.
Can I just add to? I'm gonna.
Sure.
I know I've had conversations with Mr. Chamberlain about that, and I know you did some research for that. I don't know if you want to add to that, because I know you did some extensive searching as well about that right away.
Yes, thank you, Angela. So I think Jamel nailed it. For whatever reason, when we first looked at the property and found it showed up on the tax maps, and we started talking to Mr. Sanders and his ex-wife. The ex-wife owned the piece that Mr. Dill has now purchased, and then Mr. Sanders owned the piece that we have under contract. We had the attorney that did the real estate work for them years and years ago, and we could never get true confirmation that the right-of-way or easement or strip or whatever name you want to put on it was actually created. What is actually drawn. The second issue is what is drawn, I believe, is only drawn at 40 feet, which you need 50 feet for a public right of way. My son and I put that lot under contract really to build one individual single family house. The idea, we did not want traffic to go through there because it is meant to be just one individual home. Typically, I would agree with Jamel. You don't like to create spite strips. But this is also, and I think, I don't want to put words in Angela's mouth, but you're right, we have had many discussions. The piece, one of the reasons we didn't pursue the piece that Mr. Dill purchased, that is on the side of the stream that's under the impaired stream list. There's some wetlands on that lot. It is, and I can let Angela speak, but from my impression, that's an extremely tough piece. Developers have been in the town talking to Angela and Jamel and Jay for probably the last 10 years about this piece. There's a reason why it's never sold. Nobody could ever come in and build a road up through the property. You couldn't afford to redo Susan Avenue. You couldn't afford to make the changes, build that amount of road, and ever build anywhere near the kind of units you'd have to build to justify that. Because of obviously all the infrastructure we have put in over the years, we had the advantage of being backed up to the property, and we were looking for, my son was looking for one piece of property, on public utilities that would have a little bit of privacy. And when we came across this piece and it was available, and we both know Jim personally, and it took us a while to put the deal together because of all the legal work. So I have to say, we really don't have any interest in providing a free access over to a neighbor so that they could build a house and fly in the face of exactly what we're trying to accomplish, doing more of a private single family home. But I do agree. I think there's many legal issues with that lot. We were never able, even with the attorney that did the work, ever able to get written confirmation that that actually did exist. And the way we understand it is the lot that we have under contract, the 40-foot strip, if it is 40, actually sits on the land that we own. And if there are rights, Mr. Dill may have rights to build a right-of-way or access it from Susan Avenue. So that's the most we understand, but we could never get an actual legal commitment that that was the case. But because we only had interest in building a single family lot, single family home, it really didn't matter.
Thanks, Elliot. I see Mr. Dill, your hand is raised again, and I'm just going to let you know that it's highly unlikely to engage in a back and forth with public comment, but you may have a little bit more information you wish to share with the chair on this, and help maybe create some more clarity or add to this discussion. So, Mr. Dill, if you would.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, I'm by no means a real estate expert or whatnot, but in advance of purchasing the property, we did some significant research and things like that on our end as well. So in the deed to 12 Susan Avenue is where it references this easement and right of way for the lot that I have purchased. So that, and seeing that displayed on the web GIS kind of led me to this, what I'm speaking of tonight in terms of the available right of way. If you go back further and look at some of the original Susan Avenue subdivision plans, it doesn't extend, I believe, all the way down to the end on those plans, but it does go to basically to where the end of the existing property is. And then when they transferred ownership, I believe it was the La Volpas transferred ownership to the Sanders, that's when this right of way for the lots was put in. So it is in the deed to the 12 Susan Avenue property as I see it. So.
Thank you. All right, and I think right now we'll jump into board questions. Rachel?
Yeah, I was wondering if Angela or somebody from the planning department, just part of the research, if anybody had taken a look at any other lots on Susan Way to see if there's reference in those lots to any sort of easement or right of way. If if there is reference on Mr. Dill's property, is it elsewhere? Because this is a difficult conundrum that we're facing. So it would be helpful. Did anybody take a look, Angela or somebody?
I can share with you what I do know. We did have conversations with the previous owner to that property that Mr. Dill just spoke of when she was selling, and talked to many realtors as they were coming through and trying to figure out what to do with that property. I think, as said, in the deed that Mr. Dill was referring to, there is some language, I believe, about whether it's an easement or strip of land or what that is. And that's where the language around I believe it was 30 feet comes in. And so in my conversations with the planning director, as well as code enforcement, the zoning administrator, was looking at what you can actually do with that property. It was not likely that you could either do any kind of subdivision because you need a 50-foot right of way. So it was really about most likely doing a driveway to one house lot out there. So that's where that limitation kind of, I guess, and that's coming in from the end of Susan Avenue. And so that's where that private piece came. It wasn't clear how long that extended down the property. Nothing was very clear, I think, and that's where it got into complications, I think, with selling that lot, unfortunately, and trying to figure out what rights someone had or didn't have. What staff kind of hung onto was looking at what you can do with the property based on access. And that's where for even a private way or a public street, you need a 50-foot right of way. So it would be, you could do it by buying property next to it in order to accomplish that. As I think Mr. Chamberlain alluded to, the problem then becomes Phillips Brook is an impaired watershed. And so the buffers around that are strictly enforced, and it's a little more, it's difficult to get closer and encroach in those buffers as you would maybe a more typical stream that's not impaired. So then all of a sudden your building footprint gets shrunk again. And so then you're into a battle of, can you even hit the building setbacks for the lot? So there's a lot of, and I think that's where he was alluding to, there's a lot of issues that come up with that lot. The question would be, you'd really have to kind of cobble together on either side. And that's where the value comes in, maybe on combining lots as Mr. Dill did to provide a buffer, or gaining another strip in order to get the 50 feet. So it gets complicated, but it's not impossible. I guess that's all I can say.
Thanks, Angela. Rachel?
Yeah, was there reference to another access way or another right of way on the other side? I'm trying now to search my memory. Were there two? Are there two possible connections in this application that you have? You've got the one attached to Susan Road, which we're dealing with right now. Was there another one? Because we do look to make connections, and so I'm trying to.
I can answer that if I'll share my screen again. So this is, again, phase 4 and phase 5. The original extension of Guggen Strip was, well, this is Guggen's Drive, and this was a reserve strip for a future connection to the southern abutter. And so as a blow up, that again is that was always intended as an extension of Guggen's Drive in the original subdivision, and we're just formalizing that to access two duplexes.
All right, I think I understand a lot better what the changes are that you were proposing. We're not taking a look at any of the duplexes in light blue. That's not projected to be any changes in those. Is that correct? Yeah, those, as opposed to the periwinkle.
Correct. This is phase 4, and these duplexes here were already permitted. These duplexes here and these duplexes here were already part of the original or the 6th amended approval, and have been built already. The only change is a slight shift of these to accommodate the additional 2 duplexes here at the intersection of Guggens and Stewart, and then these 2 duplexes here replacing these original multi-unit buildings.
Right. So nothing in the light blue, and we're looking at the periwinkle and the pink.
Correct. So this would be phase 6.
Any changes in the multifamily to the next to the commercial area?
No, this was intended as a for the affordable housing component of the subdivision, but that building has not been designed. We haven't really made any change to what that use is going to be, and Elliott hasn't decided what that building is actually going to look like.
All right, thank you. I think I'm pretty clear now on what it is you're proposing, and I appreciate this. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Any other, Roger?
Yeah, on the, let me get my bearings here. Oh, first of all, on Guggens Drive, theoretically, that could be a connection to the abutting property in the future, should that ever occur. Isn't that correct, Elliot?
Yes. So before we started making changes, I sat down with Jay, and Jay had said that it was always planned in the beginning that at least be a paper right of way there. And we knew that. I'm going back 12, 13, 14 years here. He said, you don't have to build it, but you at least have to have the right of way. We're talking about access to probably over 100 acres. We don't have the stream issue. So I would have a hard time admitting this one doesn't make sense. And it was planned in from the very beginning. The only difference is we decided to build a portion of it so that we could build more duplex style units instead of multi-unit buildings, which take up less space. So yes, it could be someday, depending on what neighbors do with their land, could be a road there, because that will be at some point a public road. We'll turn it over to the town, and then the neighbor could come in and, if they develop that side property, connect to it.
So one of the peer review comments was about a hammerhead on Guggens Drive. Could that be resolved by just the way you design the parking area and the traffic around those 2 potential duplex sites?
Well, we've been trying to meet with the fire department, Jim Butler, actually, and we were just unable. Obviously, everybody's busy, and it was short notice to talk about, is there really a need for a hammerhead because the road's so short? Certainly, once we do speak with them, certainly if we absolutely need it, then we'll design something in. Whether you can actually use the driveway of a duplex, or we actually have to have a separate hammerhead. But I think, and Rick can correct me on this, I want to say that road's 150, 200 feet long total. So if you did have to back up, that's what you're looking at. But we have not met with them yet, so there's not a final decision on that.
Oh, okay. And on this, the alignment on Paulson Drive, did you initially have the idea of putting in that the right of way there, the future right of way, or in other words, was that on your original plans to do that right there?
Oh, no, that's never been. As Rick showed you when he showed you.
I'll bring that back up.
Yeah. So the last amended plan, ever since the beginning of time, that has been 27 single family lots, both wrapping around the outside and wrap in the middle. So there's never been, actually, if you look at it, you'll see the back there was a gap between the back of the lots right there and the actual property line. That was going to be owned by the Master Association of Dunstan Crossing. We have since brought that back because the trail that we're going to build, instead of going around the back of those lots and into a detention pond, we're going to wrap it down. Rick, if you can show where we're intending to put a trail, right down the back of those lots. So once we decided to move the trail for access, which is much better in that location than the other one, we knew that we could bring the lots to the back of the property. The Mr. Sanders property didn't really come about till about, probably 4 months ago, when we started conversations and we started talking with Jay and Jamel and Angela about all the different things. We looked at buying both of them. The idea was to always put, 1, 2, maybe 3 homes if we were to buy both pieces. We ended up just putting Mr. Sanders under contract and decided just to make that what is most likely going to be one single family home forever. And we didn't want access through there. We didn't want to turn that into a through road. The likelihood of ever building a road to justify a development is almost impossible. So if you couldn't do it anyways, and our intentions was to have a private single family lot, it makes no sense. And the fact that we've always believed that even if the easement exists, that it is only a 30 or 40 foot wide easement. I know Mr. Dill just purchased the property, and I guess a little bit of frustration is there's a reason why it's been on the market so long, even in such a hot real estate market. He, by his own admission, has admitted that he bought it as a buffer to, I guess he lives on the end of Martin Avenue, and the back of his lot abuts the piece he just bought. I suppose there's always a chance he could extend Martin through his property and access, more land that way. And if you were to build on the piece that he just bought, it really makes more sense to build it on the Susan Avenue end and grab a lot there. It's the end up near Paulson Drive on his property that is where most of the impact from the wetlands and the impaired stream setback is. So at this point, like I said, we purchased or put it under contract for a reason, had a very specific use. We have not added or decreased lots within the Dunstan Crossing subdivision. It was even pointed out to us that if we did make it part of Dunstan Crossing, it would actually automatically increase not automatically, but with planning board approval, increase the number of lots we could do. That wasn't our choice. We've elected to keep it a single family lot. We've elected not to try to grab more units in Dunstan Crossing. And for that 50-foot right of way. And the only reason we're making it a 50-foot right of way is Jay had explained to us that we need to create a private right of way frontage for the house that needs to be built out there. If there was a way we could just make that piece going across the land from Paulson Drive to the piece we have under contract, just part of the lot we're buying, because in our subdivision or in the zone, you only need 50 feet of frontage. At the time he said, we're going to need frontage. So we elected at the time to create a paper right of way just for the legal frontage for that one single family home.
So that's right now, that's designated to be a building for your son.
Yes.
Okay. And there'll be no opportunities or no consideration for running any kind of utilities or anything underneath there for Susan Avenue? The problem is to try to design one, you wouldn't even know what to design. Sure, I understand. Okay, yeah.
What are you designing for? And Angela can talk more about this, but to try to say we're just going to stick a stub in here for utilities that might service 1 unit or 50 units or who knows what at the other end of the property, that's almost impossible to do.
Sure. Plus you're designing your system for your property.
Right. Designing it. We're talking about utilities to service a single family home.
Okay. I just have one last question, Elliot. I know you, you had approval for 264 residential units.
Yes.
Just kind of curious, how many have you built so far?
Right now, I believe it's right around 130, 132 of housing units.
Okay,
Right,
so,
right this second.
okay, so about half is built so far.
Yeah, about half is built right now. Yep.
Okay, all right. I'm all set, thank you.
Thanks, Roger. Jen, do you have anything?
I did, but now I don't. Roger answered, and Mr. Chamberlain through that conversation answered many of the questions that I have. I guess just for extra clarity and summarizing what you were just talking about, so that new parcel that you have purchased will legally front on Paulson, correct?
The way we have it presented right now is we would create a private right-of-way off of Paulson that would be 50 feet wide, show a hammerhead on it, as we've talked about with Jay and Angela. And then off of that private right-of-way would be the technical legal frontage.
Okay.
And Angela and Jamel can correct me on that if I'm saying that wrong.
I was just curious how that works. If you're like, what would the address? Is the address of that parcel still Susan Ave? And I understand that sometimes the address. I lived in a house once with an address, but we actually didn't even use that street. We used the other street, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I was just curious, sort of how that. Looking for a little clarity on how that works, such that you would provide this access from Paulson, but that the lot that you're connecting to does not become part of the development, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yes. My guess is we do have to sit down and meet with public safety in assessing to talk about how they're going to address everything. My guess is since emergency vehicles would access the property from Paulson, my guess is they're gonna give it a Paulson address. It's really up to them, so I don't want to answer for them, but I can't imagine you would give it any other address except a Paulson address.
Well, unless you're getting frontage up a private way. So the other option is if they actually build out a private road with a hammerhead, it would have a brand new name and it would have a street sign at the end that's a private way with that name.
Yeah, and Angela, if I think it's correct that if we're just doing a single family home, we need to show the paper right away, but not actually build a private right away. Is that correct?
Right, our private way ordinance specifies that one lot can be built out. You need to design a private way, but it doesn't need to be constructed until that second lot gets triggered. And so if another lot is never triggered, it is really what I go by is what police and fire need for emergency vehicles to access. And so it's essentially a driveway that has the capability to get a ladder truck in and out, turned around.
That's all I have.
Thanks. Rick Miking.
No, I'm all set. I think the only remaining question is coordinating with the fire department, whether the hammerhead will be necessary. And I think that can be worked out. So I'm all set at this point, Nick.
All right, thanks, Rick. So Elliot and Mr. Meek, what I'm thinking right now is we could probably use a little bit more supplemental, but if staff is comfortable with your submissions, I think we could probably get to a consent item for next agenda. Does that make sense on your end? Kind of clarify a couple of these outstanding formally with the planning department?
Yeah, that works.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's, unless there's any other questions or comments on this item, we'll leave it in their hands to kind of clean it up. Otherwise, personally, I didn't have a whole lot extra. I think the presentation can help clarify. It's always nice to see it and have it pointed out to you, which isn't always quite evident when you get the written submission, but made sense as you presented it. So appreciate your time and efforts, and I guess we'll see you in about 3 weeks.
Okay.
Likewise. Thank you for your time.
All right. Have a good night. Next item tonight is Bluebird Scarborough LLC requests a site plan review for 100 Enterprise Drive, Assessor's Map 30, Lot 4701. Jamel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this project is in the Higas Parkway zoning district with frontage along Enterprise Drive. So you may recall that this project was granted site plan approval back in fall of 2018, but the project was actually never constructed, and the approval window expired about a month or two ago. So as a refresh, the applicant's proposing to construct a 35,000 square foot, 3-story climate controlled internal access storage facility with office loading and unloading areas. The project also includes parking, landscaping, and some stormwater management elements. So as I said before, this project received approval in October 2018, and the project is consistent with that approval. And there's a few remaining elements that staff did note, but these could be considered conditions of approval if the board's comfortable this evening. Staff did receive a letter from the public earlier today and did send this along to the board and the applicant this afternoon. And at this point, I'll turn it back to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Jamel. And who's presenting this evening? Rick, Bill, or Willie?
Rick is. Yep.
Rick.
You guys all hear me just fine?
You.
Yep. All right. So as Jamel said, it's the project is for Bluebird Self Storage, and Bill Goodison and Willie Brown from Bluebird are here tonight listening in just in case you have any questions about the operation. The site is located at 100 Enterprise Drive, and it was approved back in October of 2018, originally, as Jamel had mentioned, and then it was extended through 2020, and it did just lapse back on the 29th of October. And also it is a 3,500 square foot building. I'm going to share my screen and just start talking regarding the plans and address the letter from the abutters as well with that. So right now today, the lot is vacant. It has the, here's US Route 1, and then the ramp into Enterprise Drive from the north heading south is right there. And the tire warehouse, I believe, is located or right here, or says Monroe Muffler on here, but I believe it's the tire warehouse today. So what we have, as Jamel had mentioned in the proposal, is a 3-story building, 3,500 square foot footprint, climate controlled self-storage facility with 33 parking spaces. All state permits are in hand through the DEP and also the Army Corps permit that goes along with that. There's some wetlands that are being filled. There's a pocket wetland here in the building, and it needed a modified an amendment to the SLOTA application that was approved for the industrial park or the commercial park. We did run all the local fire vehicles through the site, and garbage trucks and delivery vans and pickup vans that the facility will employ as well for picking up items from clients that will be being stored. And then, sorry about that. There. This page doesn't want to go along. So in stormwater wise, we are collecting stormwater from the impervious area on site and treating it with under drain soil filters located to the, I suppose it'd be the north and the south of the building. And it is served by water and sewer from Enterprise Drive and electric from back closer to Route 1 off the utility line that comes through actually an easement on the property. There is a dumpster, and has at the end of this turnaround here, there's actually some parking spaces here, auxiliary for pickup and delivery vehicles that Bluebird may store at the facility. I'm just going to skip to the landscaping plan because I believe this will speak to the Trueworthies, the abutters that sent the letter, and a lot of their concerns. Bear with me. So we did do a photometric lighting plan previously by Swift Current out of Scarborough, or I'm sorry, not Scarborough, Yarmouth. And most of the lighting is building mounted at basically the just above door height. On the building, when we look at the elevations in a moment, you'll notice there's a brick detail and the lights are right along the top of that. And that corresponds with the first floor elevation. And there are a couple decorative lights on either side of the main entrance, but they're here and here. And then these are all the security lights, down shielded LEDs. There are a number of pole lights around the parking area as well, but those are also LEDs and downlit. So one of the concerns from the abutters, and rightfully so, is that they don't want any more light pollution from Route 1. And the landscaping plan that was developed for this project does infill that void that they had mentioned in their comments at the end of their letter to the board. Would be nice to have that area filled in. The existing trees that are there today will remain. And then again, there'll be some additional planting, some trees, of varying sizes, and shrubs as well to fill that hole in the tree line. I did just email also the lighting cut sheets to Jamel. I didn't, so I'm sorry for those being lost in translation there, Jamel, when we sent it all in originally. But you'll see that they're pretty much employing all LEDs and down shielded. I think maybe the decorative lights might not be LED, but they most likely are just kind of a decorative dome. And I can flip to those real quick. So again, the parking lot lights are all LED, down shielded, and pole mounted. And I think there's five of those. And then get through all this. I believe these are underneath, or these are floodlights down at the main entrance on the parking lot. They light a little sign that's out off of Enterprise Drive, and they shine on the sign itself. And then these are the lights, the down shielded lights around the perimeter of the building. And these are the decorative round lights that they have adjacent to the main entry door. And I will go back to plans. So, and what those decorative lights are right there and right there on either side of the entry door, on both sides of the tower, the main, I guess, tower at the entrance. The other lights are running along the area right there, along the top of that brick detail on the face of the building. So, and I will just, since we have them, I will show you the renderings of the building from before. So again, this is the area that currently is kind of a void in the tree line, and it kind of depicts both the existing trees and then the infill of the some evergreen shrubs and a couple of other trees that'll be added in. And then here's just another view from Enterprise Drive as you would be driving out to Route 1 of the building. And again, shows those decorative lights just above the main entry area. And just, I did take a look at where the Trueworthy's home was in relation to the site. And this is the site right off of the GIS mapping in Scarborough. And the Trueworthys live down at 8 Bird Avenue down here. And this tree line is pretty porous as was demonstrated by the photos they sent. They can kind of basically see the tire warehouse right there, which is again on the plan. It's called out as Monroe Muffler. That was the previous use. So I can understand their concern. But again, the landscaping plan is going to fill this area in here. And the lights are all pretty much just security style building mounted, except in the back where the parking will be. And those are all down shielded. So with that, I guess I will leave it to the board for questions and comments.
Thanks,
I'll go
Rick.
back to the
Appreciate
plans. Oh, no problem.
We do have an opportunity this evening for public comment. If you're interested in speaking on this topic, I'd ask that you please use the raise my hand feature. Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to turn this over to the board. So I think most all of you will probably recall we've seen this before and approved it before. So slight changes. It doesn't look like too much. Does any board member have a question on this? I see Rachel's hand raised.
Yeah, the one thing that did not get mentioned is are the lights dimmed, or when are the lights dimmed, especially in back, which is more to the area that could be seen from the road? Are they dimmed? Are they turned off? What are you kind of like? What hours of business are they on?
I believe when we were in before you folks the first time, we did say that they could be dimmed. And actually, it looks like they have the hours of operation right here. So their office, quote unquote, hours of operation per the previous approval were going to be Monday to Friday, 6 to 8, Saturdays, 6 to 6, and then Sundays, 6 to 4. And as far as the dimming of the lights, I'm sure that Bill and Willie would be amenable to having those lights dim to, at the very least, dim to match the schedule of the business.
Thank you. That I think that would be helpful and help the abutter. I remember wrestling this to the ground when you were before us a couple of years ago. It's a good project. You were a very cooperative developer, and you worked with us on making some changes here and there. Good to see it back. Good to see that you're going to build. I've spent the last year saying, I wonder when that's going to happen. And it's glad to know and glad you're back before us. Thank you.
Thanks,
Welcome.
Rachel. Roger.
Yes, to follow up on Rachel's last comment, is it a fair assumption that because you're before the board and you're planning on doing some construction relatively, soon?
I believe that the plan is that they're going to build in the spring. I think at this point you're getting into the winter construction months, and foundations would be rough. But if Bill or Willie wants to chime in and add, they can. But I believe that they are planning to build in the spring.
Good. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I would say we are going to move forward. If we get approval tonight, we'll move forward with the bidding and process, and then, break ground as soon as we can in the spring.
Good.
You all set, Roger? Jenna, Rick, do you have anything? Rick, go ahead.
Yeah, just for the applicant, it appears you're using 3 different colors on your LED lights, and I'm just wondering if you're aware that there's going to be a hodgepodge of different light colors based on the color temperatures that you've indicated with the cut sheets. And I think there's a note from the staff comments, and it would be very helpful to have the min max on your lighting levels. Just looking at your photometrics, it certainly appears like you're exceeding the Illuminating Society's guidance on parking lot lighting levels. You're in pretty high levels of light. And I'm just wondering if maybe you could take this back to your lighting consultant and see if maybe they could align the lighting colors and maybe even reduce some of the wattage or lumens from some of these fixtures so that they're within the recommendations from the Illuminating Society for parking lots. That's my only comment I had, and I think that's addressed here. And I think it's something you can work with staff in ensuring that the min max is available so that they can verify it's within the standards for parking lots.
Okay.
That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Rick. Jennifer, do you have anything?
No, I didn't. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Angela, I believe there is a motion. I don't have anything to add, having canceled this about a year and a half ago to the ground. And she's right. You were a very accommodating developer, and I trust too that you'll have a look at Rick's suggestion with the lighting, as of course would help out any abutters. Angela, do you have a motion ready for us to review? Thank you. And anything in there that addresses Rick's comment on lighting?
It does.
Okay, great. All right, I move to approve the site plan project titled Bluebird Self-Storage as depicted on the plan set prepared by Fuss and O'Neill dated 10/15/20 with the following findings and conditions. Findings: the applicant is proposing to construct a 35,000 square foot, 3-story climate controlled internal access storage facility with office loading and unloading areas, parking, landscaping, and infrastructure. Proposal is located on lot 1 of the approved Enterprise Business Park subdivision with access along Enterprise Drive. Project is located along the Higas Parkway HP zoning district. Planning board has reviewed the application and supporting documentation and finds that the design of the site plan adequately addresses the site plan review and zoning ordinance requirements for site utilization and layout, access, internal vehicular movement, parking, pedestrian ways, landscaping, stormwater management, lighting, architecture, signage, utilities, and storage. Pins 1. Prior to issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall revise the plan set to include A, plan note indicating when the lights on the property will be dimmed, B, cut sheets on the proposed light fixtures, C, maximum and minimum lighting levels on the photometric plan, and D, an updated end date. This shall be reviewed and approved by the planning department. 2, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall A, coordinate with the Scarborough Sanitary District and the Portland Water District to ensure prior approvals from 2018 remain active. If new required, these shall be provided to the planning department. B, coordinate with the fire department in regards to the required third-party testing for a BDA system and the required fire hydrant on this should be approved by the planning department. 3, prior to the issuance of a sign permit, the applicant shall revise the identification sign to include the entire street address as required by the zoning ordinance. 4, prior to the start of construction, a pre-construction meeting is required. Appropriate town staff, the developer, and their site contractor, and is to be coordinated through the planning department. That's the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion? Okay, I'll do the roll. Rachel Henderson.
Yes.
Roger Beely.
Yes.
Jennifer Ladd.
Yes.
Rick Meinking.
Yes.
Nick McGee, yes. Sure, that is unanimous. Congratulations again, and good luck again.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, folks.
Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Good luck.
Next item on tonight's agenda is Keeper Scarborough LLC requests a site plan review for 1100 Technology Way and 1500 Technology Way. Assessors map U39 lots 4731 and 4730.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is located in the Higas Parkway zoning district as well, at the existing main veterinary medical center and within the vacant lot to the south of the medical center. The applicant's proposing to construct a patient drop-off and pickup driveway and an additional gravel parking area on the abutting lot to the south. So as noted in the staff comments, there appears to be some plans missing in the set, including a grading and drainage, landscaping, utility, lighting, and stormwater management details. So given that these materials were not included in the submission, staff may suggest that tonight's review really be an elevated sketch plan until those detailed sheets are provided for review. Some of the other comments include that the HP zone requires a 15-foot wide landscape buffer along Technology Way to help separate the development from the street and enhance the visual environment. And staff also noted that the graphic representation is required to depicting how the site will look upon completion. So these will need to be included in a future submission to the board. Staff has suggested that the applicant consider narrowing the enter-only driveway along Technology Way, given it is proposed to be a one-way driveway. The design with a narrower driveway would help to deter two-way traffic entering and exiting the site and ensure motorists enter the site at the lowest speeds possible. The applicant should coordinate with the fire department on this design suggestion as well. Staff has suggested that noted that the zoning ordinance requires all driveways, maneuvering areas, and parking areas in all business zones to be paved. So staff has recommended that the gravel parking area be paved to meet the zoning standard. And staff also had some questions in regards to the viability of development on the remaining portion of the budding lot, giving off-street parking spaces that need to be located at the side or rear of the property per the zoning ordinance. So the applicant should discuss any future plans on this lot with the board this evening. I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Jamel. Mr. Bushy.
Good evening to the board. Steve Bushy with Goral Palmer, representing Keeper Scarborough LLC. And with me tonight is Rachel Rawlinson, the Senior Strategic Hospital Manager. Is that correct, Rachel?
That is correct. Very wordy title, but yes.
Yeah. And to the board, I asked Rachel to just join us because I thought it would be appropriate for a little introduction because their group, there had been some ownership changes with the main veterinary center. I appeared before you folks a couple years ago. They did a building expansion and a parking lot expansion. That was one of the original developments within Enterprise Business Park there at the end of Technology Way. And they've had an ownership change, and I thought it would be worthy for you folks to hear from them because I think they do have some long-term plans, and we hope to be back before you in the future. Our application, though, tonight really I felt was just a basic application for a new driveway that is intended to help with the current COVID situation and how they're delivering their veterinary work in accepting when the pets come in for access into the building. They're not allowing the patients and so forth, they're the owners, I should say, access in the building. I'll let Rachel talk about that a little bit further, but if you don't mind, I'm going to share a screen just for a moment. So we'll get oriented here at the end of Technology Way Enterprise. The project just before us here a moment ago was out here on US Route 1. So the veterinary clinic is at the very end of the cul-de-sac on Technology Way. They also have acquired the adjacent undeveloped wooded lot here next to them, lot 31 off of Technology Way. And this plan is from the town's GIS, so you get a sense of where we are with respect to the ongoing Downs development work. And this image looks to show everything that I think has been approved thus far by you folks within the Downs development, so you can kind of get some sense of that. The next image is just a street view image. And the area that we're talking about for this driveway basically comes off the end of the cul-de-sac and will go over the ditch area with a new driveway. There'd be some modest site clearing here. And I suppose that's part of the discussion tonight, given staff comments about the need for landscaping and rendering views and so forth. We actually had hoped that it wouldn't need to be as, thorough a submission for a driveway piece here, but we can certainly talk about that and see where the board's wishes direct us. You'll note there is a sidewalk out in front of the veterinary center. You can see the veterinary center in the background here, so to speak. There's a gap of missing sidewalk. Not sure what the history is on that, but our proposal, and I'll show that to you in a moment, was to continue that sidewalk piece. Just off the screen to the right of this street view image would be the existing end of the sidewalk. And again, I don't know why that wasn't continued, but the access into the clinic is just off to the left of the image here, and that gains access into the facility. So here's the site plan, existing driveway again, off of the cul-de-sac area. We had been before you folks a couple of years back for an expansion of the parking facility out behind, and I can't recall exactly. I know our total parking on the site is 74 spaces. Then more recently, there was a building expansion that was completed sometime, I think last summer around that, Rachel, I think, here at the back end of the building. We had also, I think at the time we did the parking lot expansion, there's a mobile MRI imaging unit that was installed on some concrete pads here. So a fairly robust amount of activity over the last couple of years. And I think the business model for the clinic here has been highly successful. Every time I go by there, it's got a relatively full parking lot. And in fact, seems to be some amount of parking that's happening out on Technology Way. And I think that's a motivating factor for the clinic to try to find some space effectively for some staff parking here. So the proposal that is on this drawing shows the new driveway. Jamel gave you the comments from the staff about perhaps some adjustments to this driveway opening. We were just graphically showing a 24-foot wide drive aisle that would come up to the face of the building. This hatched area at the face of the building is an existing emergency vehicle area. It is the access to the building here at the front where folks are allowed to walk into the building. But here there was some grass paved surface that allowed for a fire truck to come up and at least pull up to the front face of the building. We would convert this to paving so it connected all together there. But just to give you a sense of what the original plan, the existing conditions out there today, we're basically just looking to try to connect here. And this main drive, proposed drive, would allow owners with their pets to come and park in front of the building and then allow clinic staff to come out and access to the pet, because again, they're not under these COVID conditions allowing the owners into the building. And Rachel might be able to explain a little bit more of that here in a bit. A little bit more of the background as to the site plan that we provided, and some of the staff comments relate to the drainage and some grading pieces. There isn't a lot of topography. The site's relatively flat. There's only one or two contour lines here even. So we try to just make use of some directional arrows. The idea and intent is basically in this first phase of development activity here to make use of lot 30 or 31 is to have the drainage simply go out to the ditch that I showed you in that photograph a moment ago. That ditch goes easterly down Technology Way to the existing wet pond that is the primary stormwater management function for the lot. I'm going to show you here a little bit more of lot 31 and to the staff comment about long-term plans. So this is basically a 1 acre site area. We tried to keep this proposed driveway for the time being pretty tight to the face of the existing building, because that's what it's there to serve in the interim. We can talk a little bit more, although there's really no definitive plans yet, about the idea of where might a future building, and I believe that the clinic folks in their ownership group is interested in putting another building here on lot 31, but we're a ways away from that for the time being. But in the interim, we're trying to deal with these COVID conditions. So we're running up against some issues relative to construction. Ideally, we'd have this in the ground now. Paving wise, as you folks probably can appreciate, we're probably right at the tail end. And even if we don't get some action or direction tonight, we're hopeful at the 1st of December, we might be able to move forward and discuss the ability to actually perhaps just build this with a gravel surface in one form, because they do need this access to help with how they're dealing with the owners and so forth. As you can imagine, with a single driveway today into the parking lot, people are coming out and the staff are having to go out into the parking lot, come back in, and it just seems to be a little bit of a challenge. Plus, they are pretty fully staffed, and so having the overflow area for staff to basically be out of the way from the more standard parking area here over to the side, which would allow folks who are waiting for their pets review, they could park here in the parking lot. So that's kind of the gist of where we're at. We understand the staff comments about maybe having more with respect to landscaping and lighting. I'm working with Swaney Lighting. They did the original parking lot, and we would just simply have them put in a couple more lights that match the fixtures out in the existing parking lot. We hadn't necessarily expected to have to go into as great a detail for the driveway here that we're proposing, but hearing staff comments, we can certainly do that. But we would be interested in hearing from the board tonight with respect to the what amount of landscaping, how much renderings. Honestly, we weren't looking at having to do any sort of graphical support beyond what we've provided here in a plan. And if we need to do that, then that's just, it's a little bit more than we had expected for a driveway. We're hopeful that we might be able to have that as a waived type submission piece. But that's the gist of it. There really aren't many other things here other than, again, that sidewalk that we will connect through. And I think there's been a comment about putting a crosswalk, and we can certainly do that as well. So with that, I'd like to just turn over to Rachel just for a moment so she can give you a quick introduction of who she is and what they're doing at the facility.
Thank you so much. So as Stephen said, I'm Rachel Rollinson, and I started with Maine Veterinary Medical Center in June. So we have gone through quite a few shifts and changes with leadership recently, and are on a very quick path for growth. So I know that we don't often talk about benefits of COVID, but one of the benefits of COVID is that all the animal shelters are empty. And so what that means is that people are definitely seem to be spending a lot more time at home evaluating their pets and thinking, oh, what's that? What is that? What's happening? And so they are coming to our facility. So we have 8 different departments, ranging from critical care specialists, oncology, internal medicine, ophthalmology, surgery, and in addition, obviously, our emergency services. And so people are coming from, they have a toenail that they don't know what's happening and their dog's foot is bleeding, to, their dog got hit by a car, or it's cancer, or, the dog sniffed something up its nose, to a huge range. So currently right now, we are at about 180 staff members. And that is growing in order to keep up. We are 24/7, 360, all through the entire year, all holidays, everything. We're open all the time. And with that number of staff who are on throughout the day, we don't have obviously all 80 of them in at one time. But in addition, we've marked off our spots so that clients can come in, they're in the parking lot, they give us a ring. a technician will go outside, will speak with the owner, will take the pet, and will bring the pet inside the building. So we are consistently keeping at least 20 of our parking spots open so that clients have a space to go to for that. Sometimes there are people that all those 20 spots are full and they do not fit in the parking lot in addition to our staff parking there. So as Stephen mentioned, we are starting to bleed out, if you will, into that roundabout there at the end, which I definitely have a concern for safety vehicles and whatnot, being able to have access, full access down to our facility with that. And additionally, again, the other night I was leaving and there was a gentleman who was there and was towing a trailer. So again, would have no area to easily come into our lot, do a drop off of a pet, and then be able to come back more easily later to come pick up that pet. So that would be just a little bit about what's happening with our facility right now, and the need for the lot is that we're trying as much as we can of wanting to respect, you know, with snow coming, we're not sure where to put the cars. And so again, appealing to all of you for some assistance as far as strategizing on what we can do in order to make this happen as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Rachel. I will turn it back to the board and let me know if you want me to pull the plan back up, but I will stop sharing if that's okay by you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And yeah, you can if you need it pulled back up, we'll let you know during questioning. We do have an opportunity for public comment on this item. If you are here from the public and would like to speak, please use the raise my hand feature. All right, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. Just turn this over to the board. Does anyone have any questions or comments on what they've seen? I'm just going to leave that open. Rachel?
Yeah, you know, when I started reading this, I thought it was very simple. You wanted a driveway and a parking lot, and then things started to get complicated because, for instance, in a parking lot, if the driveway is permanent, the parking lot apparently is temporary. And the driveway sounds as though it's being done in anticipation of being the entrance of a possible future building, which means that the parking lot that you're proposing, even if it's temporary, would possibly have to be removed. There's so many what ifs and so many questions here that it turns out it's not simple, but I'm going to at least try and ask a couple of questions to start some of the getting some clarity, at least for me. When you put in the driveway across the front of the building, are you removing any landscaping, removing any plants?
No, just the grass paved surface that is immediately in front of the building now, where vehicles could, or the emergency vehicles were expected to be able to drive. So we would take out that, have to put in a little bit more gravel, and then it would be paved.
All right. You bought this new lot, and it's going to be considered what, one lot, or is it two lots under the same ownership?
Two lots under the same ownership currently. They were conveyed under a single deed, though. Actually, the previous owner had acquired lot 31, so that was Dr. Potoff, who you folks might recall, who was the originator of the clinic. And I don't know specifically, maybe Rachel does, but I saw in the deed he had acquired lot 31, which had been undeveloped for a long time, from Commercial Place LLC last fall. And then it sounds like that was about the same time that the transfer to Keeper take place.
Again, for clarity, how about if we have Rachel H and Rachel R, so it's clarifies some of the confusion in my mind as to who you're mentioning when you mention Rachel. So the driveway starts on one lot, continues into the other seamlessly, but there is no landscaping continuation between one lot and the other. So I would suggest that, first of all, that's one thing to consider. We do have the question of the buffer. My problem that I get back to is we have one thing that's permanent, sounds like, and that's the driveway, which then would be used for another building. And one thing that's temporary, and that's a parking lot, which you're proposing out of gravel that would have to be torn up if you're going to do any sort of additional construction on there. It would be likely that that there would need to be some changes. Unless you really show us what the construction is that you're thinking of putting there. It's hard to look at that blank space and say, okay, well, we can commit to, or you're asking us to commit an approval for a third of a lot that you're going to fill in the 2/3 later. And as I said, that just creates a certain amount of unease because I don't know what you're going to do. It would be easy. We could decide if you were going to be putting in a permanent parking spaces, because then we could say, okay, are they the right size? You know, excuse me, but you're going to need landscaping here. You're going to need landscaping there. What sort of curbing are you going to put around it? Where you're going to put the snow? In other words, we could ask all of the typical questions. But you're saying it's temporary, it's gravel, and there are no real typical questions that leaves us to ask. Although I do have a question: how are you going to plow that area and take care of the snow, and where are you going to put it? So this actually isn't easy, and I thought it was, and I said, oh, good, they're expanding. This is a good organization, and then all of a sudden things kind of got complicated, and I don't know if I've helped you, but those are some of the things that are in my mind that I'm thinking about as I look at this.
Right.
Yeah, I have a question for staff on this, because when I read the proposal, it's obvious to me that this is a temporary fix to an issue, which is currently motivated because of the COVID-19. And so assuming we get a handle on that particular issue, that may have an effect on what they plan to do in the future. And so I'm tending to lean towards being a little lenient on this to help them get through this particular situation. But I want to ask staff, I totally understand and appreciate everything that are in the comments and the zoning and all the other requirements and the landscaping, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm wondering if we can move this forward with a condition or conditions that basically state they have a certain timeline. So for instance, in a year or 2 years, whatever the board decides, if they have not done any further development or come forward with any further development on lot 31, then we have to go back and revisit this, and they have to abide by the various ordinances, like landscaping, et cetera, like that. And so I'm just wondering if that's a process we could follow. I don't necessarily want to give them an unlimited amount of time, saying, whenever you get around to it, just come back and let us know what your plans for expansion are. Just have a timetable, a timeline, and say within a certain number of years or whatever it is. If you decide not to expand because of changes in your operation, then you have to come back to us, and we have to revisit this whole arrangement and make sure it abides by all the current ordinances. So I guess that's a question to staff.
Yeah, I don't know if Jen wants to jump in, Mr. Chair, if you want me to provide some clarity. I'll leave it up to you.
I have a question for the applicant related to that, which is something I don't think I heard in your presentation. I was just curious, for the things that you've labeled temporary, do you have a sense for your own timeline or what that means to you, temporary?
I will let Rachel R. maybe address that.
Thank you. So, so as I stated, we are growing rapidly, and that's something that I think just in general, I've been in the veterinary medicine world now for about 3 or 4 years, and COVID aside, people and pets, like now that we have all of these specialties and all of these people, it's growing rapidly. We are the only specialty referral emergency hospital in the state of Maine at our size. And with things like neurology, we're the only neurology service in New Hampshire, Vermont, or Maine. So the closest place where you can see other neurologists is down in Massachusetts in Woburn. So we are definitely growing, and with Rare Breed Partnership, who is the group that we partner with. When Alan Potoff sold the practice, he sold it to Rare Breed Veterinary Partners. And so that is the group that we partner with. And so the intent with that is that we currently, the lot that we just purchased, we also would like to purchase lot 29 in addition to the next lot above us, which I believe is lot 32, I want to say, or 33. And Steve, you can probably correct me on that if I can't pull that out of my head right now. But the intent is Rare Breed would like to build their headquarters in that space, like a corporate headquarters, so that they would be able to house all their operations. Right now, they're renting a space in South Portland. And so they would like to have a permanent home right near us. And then we do have intent of wanting to build bigger. And so some of the thought process with this parking lot was creating it in such a way that when we made the decision of, hey, now we're ready to expand and start to build on a building, we would be able to do so. We would craft this, kind of semi parking lot structure in a way that we would be able to use that to build upon, so that we wouldn't need to go back to zero and then start all over again. Does that answer those questions?
Kind of. I mean, I understand that. What I didn't hear and understand, it would probably be very difficult for you to determine at this time, but we're thinking of coming in with a building plan in a year or in 6 months or something like that.
Yeah, I definitely think that it probably would be, it's something we're already talking about. And honestly, we're going to need to make moves on it much sooner rather than later. And so to me, we would need to have, we couldn't fit clients in our building in addition to staff right now, even if there was no COVID. And so to me, it's something that we need to have happening by 2022. Like those plans would definitely need to be drawn up and ready for action in that time frame.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks.
And I want to go back to Roger's question for Jamel here, just to make sure that we're clear on whether or not that, you can end up with some sort of condition of approval that is very in nature only, or.
I think that there can be some flexibility. The issue that I'm seeing in the ordinances is that the board really needs to make sure that the project can stand on its own merits if a project in the future doesn't happen. So the board should really treat this as if this is the only thing before the board right now. So you guys really need to make sure that this project itself meets the applicable standards. And I think that there can be some flexibility with temporary and elements that remain forever, but I think staff would just need a little bit more clarity on what that means. Maybe some more details on the plan showing if there's landscaping, what they're planning on keeping, what they would remove for if a future project came up. So the board really needs to make sure that this can stand on its own merits and be its own standalone project if just in case if something in the future doesn't happen. So it's hard to do that, to create a timeline like that, Roger, sometimes for the board. And I realize it's frustrating because times are uncertain, and this is definitely a need for Scarborough and the region and the state. We just got to find a way that this temporary condition can stand on its own. I'll leave it at that.
And Angela wants to chime in here.
And just from a staff perspective too, I think what I've heard from the applicant just clarifying is even without COVID, this is not really temporary. They need these spaces, they need this access. And so wanting to use this and grow from that brings me to more the technical pieces. Like I had questions related to the culverts, like Steve mentioned, this is extremely flat site and trying to make sure this drains correctly. If they're going to use it as their base and then build upon that, expanding out, as well as lighting and getting the conduit in for these lighting fixtures and things like that. So what I heard was sort of leaning towards this is a base more than temporary. It's not going away. It's something that they'll build on in the future. And I guess you can correct that if I misunderstood that. But for me, it would have to be, even if it's there for 2 years, it needs to drain correctly. It needs to function correctly. So we need to make sure that works so you're not impacting others in the area.
And Rachel, did you have something to build on that one, or can?
Yeah, sort of. I was thinking of the idea of we are heading into the winter. It's tough to probably tough to lay a parking lot right about now, or at the time at which this might be approved. So that it might be to meet Angela's needs in terms of any drainage, the culvert, assuming that this becomes permanent, that it's gravel until as a temporary emergency measure, in a sense, until sometime, let's say, beginning of April, when the people must make moves to bring it entirely into conformance with a paved lot meeting all of the requirements. I don't know if that's something that would be acceptable, helpful, but it does have to be brought into conformance because it does sound as though it's permanent. At the same time, I understand they're heading into a tough time when it's going to be tough to actually do a paved lot with all of the requirements. But I think some flexibility is possible, but they must meet all of the standards by a certain date, I guess is what I would say, or offers an option if that's within something that would meet the requirements, meet Angela's need to make sure that the drainage is there, the lighting is there because they've got the format. So there are some things that they can put in even if the parking lot is gravel. I don't know if that's helpful, but it's just, to me, it's something that's perhaps could be considered.
And Roger, if we want to get back to your line of question.
Well, I'm looking at the drainage on the prints here, and it looks like the drainage is going towards that ditch right now. And I guess this is a question for Steve. Lot 31, is that completely wooded right now?
Yes, yep.
Okay, so basically what the plan would be to clear the area where the temporary gravel parking would be.
Correct, right. There's some
and basically not touch anything else at this point.
Right, yeah. Just to a point that Rachel H had mentioned about that landscaping. There's a nice little landscaping patch in front of the existing building. That would remain. We're not looking to touch that. We're going to make use of that existing area that's grass. It looks like grass in front of the building, but it's actually got grass paved. It was built to support a fire truck, but that would be part of the driveway. We want to keep the landscaping in front. That's actually a nice little zone there. So we need that culvert though for the proposed driveway. And I would add, there's going to be some element of sacrificial work here under this phase for this additional little parking area, gravel area. I won't be surprised that ultimately when a plan for a new building, which I'm fairly comfortable in saying is it's going to happen on this lot 31, we'll make use of the gravel that's being placed there for this parking lot. some of it might get sacrificed, and honestly, like we could put several lights in, and we may find out, well, we're going to have to move them to make the new layout for probably some more parking and a building space that would all be over to the side. That's just the consequence of the activity. So, you know, there's going to be a little bit of replication, a little spending money twice, which nobody really likes to do, but sometimes you have to do that to make it function. So I would expect that that would be the course of action, but I truly appreciate the board's willingness to at least talk about the idea of, you know, something off in the future. The applicant here, the folks have given me great confidence that they're really excited about moving ahead with other things. And I hope that the things that Rachel R. mentioned were viewed as very positive for the community. I hadn't realized, in fact, that where the medical center stood as the one and only facility 24/7 in the state, or if not Northern New England here. So that's pretty impressive. And so I guess the trick ultimately, when we come back to you folks, is to show you how they're really fitting in a bunch of other stuff, like a corporate headquarters for Rare Breed. I think I had, just to put a plug in for Rare Breed, when I'd gone to their website, I think they've acquired something like 19 hospitals or something like that. So pretty impressive organization that I'd say, geez, I wish they were coming to South Portland, but welcome to Scarborough.
Well, let me ask Angela this question regarding the temporary parking. Where this lot is flat and the drainage appears to be going towards the ditch, and it's going to be gravel, I would think there'd be more of a concern if they wanted to do this on a temporary basis and put pavement there in the parking lot, because the gravel will actually be porous. So, I mean.
When you compact gravel, it's impervious area. So it would be similar. It would be the same as far as stormwater goes. But I think my concern about, I'm sorry, I guess to clarify, for storm drain is really what we've had issues from the beginning with, I shouldn't say issues, but it's a little complicated where this subdivision is so flat in general. And you go and drive along any of those ditch lines, there is really no slope in those ditches. So like to try to get the flow to it, and then trying to get a culvert in with cover over it. So that was some of the questions that we had, like staff was looking for more detail to say, what are the inverts to those culverts? Does it have enough cover over it? Or is it really a temporary that's gonna heave in the winter and it's gonna be in our right of way? Obviously the applicant doesn't want that either, but it's been a problem throughout in really the design. And I think the design, because we've taken a little extra time and effort, has made it work. And you'll see a lot of those driveways working. But I think from an engineering standpoint, and I'm sure Steve can attest to this, when you look at the design of that road or those roads within this development, to get those ditches to drain has been, it's tough. And now with Public Works having to maintain those to get that flow. So I'm not saying that's not impossible. And I really don't think this is a huge reach. I think it's really probably sitting down and looking at just a few things. Like we were talking about, when you clear that lot 31 just for the lot, you're opening up, say, the transformer or the back side of the building, or you're looking at, do you really need 24 feet wide for a one-way loop? It just encourages traffic to go both ways and things like that. I think it's more about little specific details than a big lift. And maybe that's just me being optimistic, but I don't think we're that far from there. It's just providing us some more detail.
I think just for the purposes of, we got to kind of circle back to how Jamel framed this up for us. We got to really look at this as more of a sketch plan because, as Angela just pointed out, we are lacking some details here, and I don't want any of us to try to engineer this as it goes on. So I think the best thing that we can do as a board right now is give this applicant some clarity for how they can approach staff. Where's our comfort level? Are we okay with a temporary parking lot in an area that might be developed? I think we should provide some of that feedback to them. So when they go to staff knows where our heads are at for a plan like this. And hopefully when they come back to us, we can get them on more of an action plan here rather than what I'm kind of seeing right here, which is it sounds like we're trying to figure out the best way to make this work. Instead, I think we should maybe focus on the best guidance to give them so they can figure out how to make this work best. Does that sound fair?
I mean, that's where I'm leaning, because I would like to try and accommodate them as much as we can. So I'd be willing to let them work with staff to come up with whatever staff feels is required to get this done on a temporary basis. You know, if that requires a timeline with conditions, so be it.
But I guess just to clarify, I think there are a couple things, and I think Steve mentioned that they would need guidance from the planning board that staff can't provide. One being how much landscaping you want. Do you want a rendering of the building? And the other thing, we were talking about gravel parking lot. If the ordinance is saying it should be paved, to give staff some guidance and the developer some guidance on, is that something you guys want to look at altering?
Well, for instance, nothing's going to happen with the building. Is that correct?
Correct.
Nothing's happening with the building. So I don't know. I understand, Angela, where you're coming from, and I think it's legitimate, your concerns.
I guess I
I'm
wasn't
not an
looking at
engineer, so
concerns.
I
I just
don't
wanted
know.
info.
Pardon me?
I guess
Pardon me?
I'm not looking at concerns about necessarily renderings or landscaping. It's really getting input from the planning board. It's not saying this is the direction we want you to go. It's trying to give us clarity and the developer clarity on what you would want to see as a board.
Well, for instance, on landscaping, the whole lot is wooded right now, and all they're going to do is clear the woods to make the temporary parking. So I'm not concerned about personally, I'm not concerned about additional landscaping, because I think that would be handled with future expansion. So I'm just looking for whatever, from the technical point of view, from the engineering point of view, stormwater point of view, what has to be done to satisfy the temporary fix they want. And
Information, it's the details. That's what I'd want to see.
I guess to clarify that is, if this came in as a proposal for quote unquote a temporary parking lot, I mean, I've got to assume there's something that you have in the ordinances that helps provide guidance for that, or B, the applicant is mostly in charge of showing how the temporary parking lot will drain properly, et cetera, while it's in use. So my bigger picture question here is, are we comfortable with saying, this is a temporary parking lot for the next year? And that gives an applicant, a year to, with a fuller plan. If not, I got to believe there's a way to get conditions in there that state that we would require them to resubmit with a more permanent structure. I mean, I know for a fact we've allowed like moving cars on the lawn for a year. They've come into, in front of us for things like that. So when I look at this, I say, okay, so what is it that we need the applicant to A, ask for, and B, plan for? And Angela, I understand where you're coming from. I'm with Roger. I don't need to see a robust landscaping plan on what could be a temporary parking area. Now, if you need more, permanent stormwater features, I think that needs to be made clear to the on their next submission that you would fully expect to see that even on a temporary parking spot or a parking lot. That's where I'm coming from. Rachel.
Yeah, I need to push back just a little bit on the landscaping, because part of what's going in is a permanent driveway that is paved. So to the extent of the driveway from the road to the beginning of the first parking lot, I would like to see some landscaping. I don't think it would be useful to plant trees, because they may very well have to be moved. But plant plant some bushes, plant some perennials, some grasses along the driveway far enough back that the plow isn't going to take them out. And then they stop as the parking lot comes, so that people looking in don't see just a cleared area that's a driveway and then a parking lot. There can be some disguise there. Don't think I'm particularly comfortable waiting a full year to see something. I think the important thing right now is to get these folks through the real crunch around the COVID, and hopefully come next June, things are going to be a little better. The need for the parking may be a little smoother. People may be able to go into the building. We don't know. I mean, we still could be in lockdown. So I would be more comfortable seeing something, a go, no go on a paved lot come June. And by go, no go, either the parking lot becomes paved because you've got a plan, or it's the definition of temporary means that around June it's removed.
I could just jump in, Mr. Chair, too. I'm just looking at section 2B in the zoning ordinance, and it does, one of the reasons for the buffering along the public way is to have screen parking. That's the reason for the 15-foot landscape buffer. That was noted in the comments. So it doesn't say temporary parking. It just says to help screen parking from the view of the street. So I'm having a hard time like allowing for zoning standards which are not waivable to be waived when this is a parking lot and this is a requirement to do development in the district. So I think some sort of some more details are needed. And I think Rachel's ideas were pretty good for that. Just wanted to help the discussion.
If they were to not have the temporary parking right out near the front of the lot, but had more, as you go around the bend, have additional parking in the back there, would that satisfy the ordinance, Jamal?
The ordinance requires a 15-foot landscape buffer along the right of way. It's section 2B 4, Roger, in the zoning ordinance.
I think, what I'm, just based on the discussion and the back and forth, what I feel is that the applicant needs to come in with more information and probably a more thorough plan for review. And as I said, I don't want to cut them short. I also don't want to build a plan for them during our meeting. And I'm starting to see, some of that happening. And I think, Steve, you've been doing this a long time. You know very well the ordinances. You've been in front of this board quite a few long expectations. I think there's a willingness from board members to definitely work with you and the applicant here to get you some relief sooner rather than later. But I also think, you're going to have to present to something that can be adjusted a little bit more thoroughly than what we're seeing here. Jennifer, did you have something to add?
I was just going to comment on the seeing additional details around the drainage, the culvert structures in particular, I do think are important, because if we're not able to see that those will drain or how those will drain, you'll basically just be creating a pond in between the two driveways here. And so I do think that's important, given the topography to work with around here, which I know is challenging. Steep sites are hard, but sometimes I think flat sites are harder. Yes, so sort of back to the comment about, if this for the applicant, if the intent here is for this driveway to be permanent, or this, this curb cut here to be permanent and for future development to come in along it, then yes, I guess I would suggest too that maybe you look at the driveway in that way in terms of landscaping requirements and setbacks and what type of entrance treatment or plantings, whether they be permanent trees or something maybe, not so permanent. And, while I hear and appreciate your reason for being here tonight is a crunch on parking to serve the business that you currently have, and the operations that you're trying to work with, none of these, let's see, what's your overall? So you're proposing 20 spaces here, but right now you don't have any of those. So maybe there's some sort of compromise where you could, look at some additional landscaping closer to the front of the site in lieu of a couple of parking spaces, something like that, which I think would aim to meet some of the zoning requirements for development of any type, be it permanent or temporary, if it should be that. That just makes it a little bit easier for us to kind of understand and check the boxes that we're looking at. And at a much more detailed level, I noticed that in addition to labeling the parking lot as temporary gravel, there's also notes about temporary silt fence or ECM barrier being there during construction. And I would just suggest that maybe if a note like that is to stay on future plans, that you might consider either eliminating the reference to that being there only for construction. If you're going to have gravel for any period of time, you're probably going to want to implement some sort of erosion control around that, unless it's until the point that it's not gravel, where I'm going with that.
Okay. Any other board comments? Rick?
Yeah, I guess where I'm coming down on all of this, and I think, Jen, you said it well. I'm coming down where thou shalt do no harm. And as temporary as it may be, is there going to be harm as it stays in a temporary condition for a while? And I think with a little bit more definitive drawings and explanations of what's going on in this additional temporary parking, with the drainage and everything like that, I think that's important to know now and ensure that, we're not going to have a parking lot that's really going to do some damage down the road. So I'm coming down to, I think, working with staff and Steve, you've done this a long time, trying to just look at it from, this is going to be permanent, but it's in a state where the seasonality of when this is happening is going to make it so that we have to have temporary, I don't know what's the best word, temporary grounds. The landscaping, I agree with Rachel. We should have definitive landscaping where the permanent driveway access that you are presenting here tonight, I think that should be defined, because I don't think you're going to upset that too much down the road. But I think that's where I'm coming down. I'd like to see a little bit more impact on what the temporary parking is going to do based on the drainage and everything like that. So coming back with some additional information and making sure staff understands exactly the timeline for how long it's going to be temporary and what it's going to do maybe down the road a year from now, what that might have an impact on that parking would be nice to know now. That's all I have.
Thanks, Rick. Roger.
Yes, this is basically for Jamal, I guess. On the temporary parking, which is down by the front of the lot, if they were to eliminate the two spaces nearest the street and just left that wooded as it currently is constituted, and then did some landscaping at the entrance, wouldn't that satisfy the 15-foot setback?
It could. I'd have to review a plan that showed us that. It's hard for me.
I mean, I'm just looking that that might be one option, you know, to look at. And I don't know, I guess I've said all I can say.
Yeah.
I just
I think we're just gonna ask Steve and the applicant just to go ahead and work with staff on getting there. I think, you know, this definitely can be accomplished. You probably have enough time to get it on for December 7th. Hopefully beat the rush and help take care of your summer needs. All right.
Yep. No, I think that's great.
All right.
I'll be in touch with Jamel and Angela over the next couple of days and work out some of these finer points there on the setbacks and where the landscaping can go. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Our next item of business is staff report. Jamel?
I actually have a pretty lengthy staff report. Luckily, it's not 10:30 at night, so you guys will actually listen to me. So I'm sure you've seen it on social media and on the town website, but there's some comprehensive plan public forums coming up over the next few weeks to gain some more public input on the comprehensive plan. So those are being held on Tuesday and Thursday this week, virtually via Zoom at 6 p.m. and then again on 12/1 or December 1st after Thanksgiving. Same program for each forum, so don't feel like you have to attend each one if you'd like to provide comment. And then once those sessions have completed, the Long Range Planning Committee will consider the additional public comment and then incorporate that if needed into the packet for council for their consideration. Since the last meeting, there's been 3 pre-construction meetings, one for the 40 Manson Libby project, the Prouts Neck seawall, and the Innovation District lots 6 and 7 off of Innovation Way. Also, just a reminder, there's a board site visit on Thursday at 3 p.m. At the Scarborough Downs with their team. It is a public meeting, so all normal rules will apply. I'll send along just a documentation or a document for you guys just to remind you of protocol for site visits in terms of, you know, not discussing current projects, and it is a public meeting with board members, so that's pretty formal in that regard. And then I just want to acknowledge that Robin has unfortunately resigned from the board, and just thank her for her really good hard work over the last 5 years serving on the board. So just wanted to thank her for that. I think Angela might have a few things as well.
Sure. I know you guys, now we keep talking to you guys about our pre-construction meetings, so you guys have some idea of where you approve plans and then they kind of go away, and just to give you guys an update on where they're at and when they're starting construction. So to follow along with that, my piece is with street acceptance, and there has been a flurry or push for street acceptance this fall from myself and Public Works before the winter operations start. And so council agendas have been including street acceptance in it. So just to give you a kind of a rundown, the lag that we see when a project gets completed and then buttoning up, there's a lot of paperwork and just all the details. So we were just accepting Ladd Drive, which you guys might know as Hildenbrand subdivision. I just accepted, this is the last meetings, we accepted Sawgrass and Sumac as part of the Sawgrass subdivision. And then Dunstan Crossing, the phase 3 piece, we've already accepted phases 1 and 2. Phase 3 is McCann and Larry Falls Drive. And this week on council agenda is the phase 1 of the Downs. So the first street acceptance within that project is in front of council on Wednesday night. And that's that first piece of the Downs Road coming in from Route 1. It also includes Mill Common and Gristmill Lane. And so just wanted to give you guys an update, and I can keep adding that in as we do with pre-cons in the future, if that's helpful.
Thanks, Angela.
Did you say Jennifer Ladd's Drive?
She's famous.
She's got a long driveway.
No, mine is definitely, there's no town coming to plow this one, that's for sure. That's all us.
All right, thanks, Jamel and Angela, for the staff reports. Administrative amendment report, Jamel.
None at this time.
All right. Correspondence. Nope. All right, I'll kick off with this one and just say thank you all for that. Everyone has done for some hard work. It feels good to get through a meeting agenda prior to 10:30 at night. It's a little weird, and I think that catch-up meeting helped. The second thing I'd like to say is I don't know if she's watching, but thank you to Robin Saunders. She did give us 5 years of volunteer time. It's a tall task. Everyone on this board can appreciate how much goes into it, and hopefully everyone realizes that she did give us quite a bit. So, that's a loss, but we will carry on. So, any other planning board comments?
Yeah, I would like to thank her also. I think it's terrific when any citizen wants to participate in a constructive way to make our town better.
Rachel?
Yeah, I also want to thank Robin. And just as a reminder, she is our representative. She sat on long range planning. So it wasn't just us that she was working with. It was another committee that's making a great deal of difference in the town, working on the comp plan. So I'm sorry. She will be missed. She's done a great job for us and for the town of Scarborough.
Any other planning board comments? Okay. Next, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you all. I appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Take care.
Bye.